for an examination paper has a maximum of 75 marks. One of 5 pass grades 80 is assigned depending on the mark obtained. The lowest mark for a given grade is known as the grade boundary. Right, so a program is being written to process examination marks. The 5 grade boundaries are stored in a global 1D array, right, GB, of type integer, right, for example, so I guess we're index 165, right, okay, well that's going to be the minimum mark for an A, obviously 57, right, for a B, obviously, etc. Right, any paper that achieves a mark within 2 marks of a grade boundary must be checked. Alright, so when I said checked, I mean basically it's being rechecked, kind of remarked. Alright, so here then, okay, using the given table, a paper with 45 marks would need to be rechecked. And well, I guess that's because what I'm also obviously here, right? Okay, so it's within 2 of 43, effectively. Right, the Pseudocode algorithm to determine whether a paper should be checked is as shown. The mark for the paper is stored in variable mark. Global variables mark, index upper and lower are declared as integers. Right, complete the pseudocode. Alright, so for index 1, 2, right, so I think, okay, here then, so I think, right, okay, in this case, what they're just looping through the 5 grade boundaries. Then what we can see they're going to do, well, right, okay, alright, so here they're going to calculate the lower bound, right, i.e., well, yeah, of course, what here, I mean, the grade boundary minus 2, obviously, well, upper bound, grade boundary plus 2, I guess, well, right, well, yeah, right, and of course, well, alright, then they're just checking if it's in that range. So I think let's just do this quickly, right, so, okay, this one's going to be 5, this one was going to be GB, GB, well, obviously, yeah, here the index, right, it's just index, and then, well, that's going to be plus 2, right, the upper bound. Right, then here, okay, alright, so this one you have to be a little bit careful, right, so we want to say, okay, alright, so, okay, alright, let's think then, so the mark, well, it should be greater than or equal to the lower bound, right, and it should be, what, less than or equal to the upper bound, right, but of course, alright, so, yeah, alright, okay, right, if it's in that range, well, then we need to recheck, so let's say that, yeah, okay, right, greater than or equal to lower, right, and mark, well, here, okay, well, that should be less than or equal to upper. And to be honest, like, alright, yeah, okay, so I think sometimes people get confused about these kind of questions, but if you just think about it with, you know, real values, so I mean, what I see, well, here, let's say 43. Now, what in that case, well, of course, this one, right here, this lower is going to be 41. Obviously, well, yeah, the upper is going to be 45. And well, I mean, yeah, hopefully you can, you know, if you sort of plug that in, right, you can see it's going to work. Yeah, so I think that's fine. Right, then B, an alternative algorithm to determine if a paper needs to be checked uses a global 1D array check. Right, that contains 76 elements of type Boolean. The indices of the array are from 0 to 75, right, inclusive, and corresponding to the range of possible marks. Right, an element in value check is true if the index within 2 marks of the grade boundary. For example, in the case where C is the grade boundary and 43 is the corresponding part of check. Right, okay, I think I read that completely wrong. Okay, so in the case where the C grade boundary is 43, the corresponding part of the check array would be as follows. Right, so 43, yeah, I guess, well, grade boundary for C, well, and then obviously here, yeah, kind of minus 2, well, here, yeah, plus 2. And I mean, well, yeah, right, okay, so hopefully that makes sense, right? Because, well, okay, what I'm saying, well, 40 doesn't have to be checked, but obviously, well, yeah, these 5 here, right, do have to be checked. Right, so the mark for a given paper is stored in variable mark. Describe how an algorithm would use the check array to determine whether this paper should be checked. Okay, so, right, the mark is stored in mark. Alright, so, right, okay, so I guess for this one, okay, alright, so obviously, alright, so they're saying what mark is going to be the index for the array. So, I mean, what they're going to do, well, okay, alright, they're going to do this, right, so GB, alright, index mark, and I mean, okay, alright, so, okay, right, basically what they're just going to check if that's equal to true, and then what, if it is equal to true, yeah, well, then I guess they're going to have to, you know, kind of, well, note down that it has to be rechecked. So let's say that, let's say, yeah, mark. Okay, right, yeah, mark will be used, as the index. Yeah, okay, right, as the index, right, to, well, I guess, yeah, to the GB array. Yeah, I think that's fine. What you could say, well, grade boundary array. Okay, yeah, alright, grade boundary array. Or let's say, yeah, if, well, I mean, yeah, I think this one's not too difficult for 2 marks. Okay, alright, so here then, okay, alright, okay, right, let's say, yeah, if the value, okay, right, yeah, if the value, right, at that index is true, yeah, if the value, right, at that index is true, well, I guess what, alright, okay, let's say then, yeah, then the paper, yeah, the paper, right, will have to be remarked, yeah, will have to be, and well, I mean, let's say checked. Yeah, so I think that's fine. Right then, in procedure, well, GBInitialise grade boundary initialize will initialize the check array using values from the GB array. Right, note it can be assumed that the maximum grade boundary value for an A is 70 and the minimum value for E is 15, and we want to write pseudocode for this procedure. Alright, so as always then, if you want to get the starter code, well, just go here to exam questions, right, go to pseudocode, and of course, find this question here. Right, so let's just open this in the code editor. And right, okay, so I'm just going to try to explain my logic for how I'm going to do this. I guess, well, first then what we need to do, we actually need to just initialize everything to false. Because, well, alright, yeah, okay, so, alright, so let's go back here. Of course, alright, so yeah, of course, alright, so we can say, well, everything is going to be false. Alright, let's say, unless it's within, this range, well, plus or minus 2. Right, okay, so I think then what I'm going to do, well, then I'm just going to loop through this grade boundary array. And I guess what we can then, what we can then do, well, then we can have a kind of nested loop inside that. And what we can do, so let's say we're going to set the start index of that, well, in this case, what is 63, right? Well, so of course, yeah, well, obviously, well, that index, right, minus 2. Of course, okay. So then we're going to set what the end index, well, to be, well, obviously 65 plus 2, right, 67. And yeah, well, in that case, just loop over those 5 values. Right, well, yeah, so 63, 64, right, 65, 66, 67. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's just see if we can do that then. So let's go procedure and, right, let's go, GBInitialise. Right, so this doesn't take any parameters. Let's actually think then, okay, so, right, so what, alright, so let's say what local variables we're going to need. I guess, well, one we're going to need is going to be an index. We can probably use what upper and lower, although to be honest, so actually I think they do say that upper and lower are also global variables, so I think you can just use those if you want. Although to be honest, I think here we can actually do it directly, just without using those. So I think, maybe that's going to be all we need. Alright, so I think first then, well, let's actually just loop through and we'll just initialize everything to be false. So right, in this case, alright, so notice here that, right, of course, alright, so here then, right, this check, well, this starts at 0, okay, it doesn't start at 1. Alright, and what, alright, so, okay, the reason for that is, well, obviously 0 is also going to be a possible mark. So let's go, right, 0, right, 275, and then we just want to go, right, that's going to be check, at this index, and let's just assign everything to false. Right, alright, so here, alright, so let's go next index, right, so of course, well, that should have assigned everything false. Right, now here then, okay, this is where we actually want to check, if it's within that range, where we're going to set it to true. So I think, right, okay, so here what we want to do then, okay, so first, and to be honest, like, in this way it doesn't really matter, alright, so either we can loop, well, sort of from A to E, or we can loop in reverse, obviously, well, 21 to 57. I think here, like, I'm just going to loop, well, obviously, in sort of forward, right, ascending order. So let's go index and, right, okay, let's start that at 1. Alright, so here let's go 2, 5. Right, since, well, of course, there's 5 grades, right, in this grade boundary array. Right, and then to be honest here, okay, so this is where I guess if you wanted, you could assign to the lower and upper. Although I think here I'm just going to do another for loop. So, right, the way I'm going to do this, well, let's go GB, right, it's going to be this index, and, okay. So I think here, okay, right, we are actually going to need 2 indexes. So let's go on maybe an inner index, right, just the nested index. Right, let's say that, alright, let's go inner index, and, okay, right, so here then we're going to assign this. Alright, that's going to be the current value, so, well, let's say 57, for example. Right, but, well, then, of course, it's going to be minus 2. Right, then we just want to say 2, and that's going to be what, GB, GB index, and then, well, obviously plus 2. Right, and then, well, I guess here we can just do the opposite, so, well, check index. Right, this one here, right, that's going to be the inner index. Right, and then here, then we just want to assign that to true. Right, let's go next. That's next inner index. Right, then this one, just next index. Right, then I think that should work. To be honest, what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to loop out just to test it as well, right, just to see if it's working. Obviously in the exam you don't need to test it like this, but yeah, I'm just going to do it just so I can see if it's working. Right, so let's go, so here, let's output the index, let's have maybe the colon, and yeah, well, then obviously just have, well, check or not, right, true or false. Right, and I guess also let's just call this, so let's go call, and yeah, GB, GB initialize. Right, let's run it then, see if it works. Right, okay, so here it's saying, yeah, okay, so well, 21 is true, and then, well, 19 and 23, so, yeah, that seems to work here. Likewise, I guess if we go, well, 33, alright, yeah, that's fine. 48, yeah, so 48 true. Okay, alright, okay, so I guess, right, okay, in this case, we've got some overlap. So, yeah, well, that's going to be 48, and then obviously 51, yeah, that's going up to 53 as well. Then I guess, yeah, 57 here. Alright, so I think that seems to work. Now, to be honest, they do actually say that what we... okay, alright. So we can also assume that the lowest grade for an E is, 15? Well, okay, no, right, okay, so the minimum for an E is 15. Yeah, well, the maximum for A is 70. Although, to be honest, I mean, here we actually don't need to do that, and also in the mark scheme, right, they also don't use 15 or 70. So, yeah, I think really you can just ignore that. Well, yeah, I mean, well, all right, because like, okay, all right. So otherwise, if you did that, I mean, you'd have to sort of, well, somewhere in this loop, right? You'd have to check, yeah, all right, okay, all right. So you have to check what if the inner index is less than 15, right? Just ignore it. Which I mean, honestly, that seems kind of unnecessary. Like if you wanted to do that, I guess you do something like this, right? Okay, well, so all right, okay, all right. Let's say if inner index. Okay, yeah, all right, okay, yeah, all right, okay, all right. Let's say if inner index is what less than 15. Well, alright, okay, alright. So let's say in this case, okay, if we want to check if it's valid, so let's say, right, okay, if inner index is greater than or equal to 15, yeah, and, well, inner index, what is less than or equal to 70, I guess, right, yeah, okay, alright. So only in this condition would we want to assign to it. Although, to be honest, I mean, well, of course, right, doing this extra check, right, it's just going to be less efficient, it's going to slow it down. Although, yeah, if we run that, I mean, you see it's going to give us the same result.